Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtarothi, the voice of New Eden. This is your New Eden news for January 30th, YC-127, cluster in crisis as drifters attack. Drifters attack systems across the cluster. Drifter-controlled forces have attacked solar systems in all 4 major nations. The attacks have focused on civilian infrastructure, triggering the deployment of military crisis response forces. Initial strikes by the drifters have already led to a death toll in the thousands, with that number expected to climb as violence continues. The motivation behind the drifters' aggression is unclear. The targeted systems are of little strategic significance. There are no signs of permanent occupation, and no resources are being extracted by either the drifters or the sleeper drones under their control. The only clue to the drifters' goal is the surveillance structures at the heart of their efforts. Named Vigilant Dreamers, these structures appear to be the focal point of drifter activity in affected systems. Defending forces are attempting to gather sufficient intel to pinpoint and ultimately destroy these dreamers. Military leaders of the Amarr, Caldari, Gallente, and Minmatar alike have called upon capsuleers to aid them in their counteroffensives against what is called the Drifter Crisis. Operations are being broadcasted to capsuleers from crisis systems via their Air Opportunities interface. Gallente districts adapt with Federation support. Although the Federation districts have been thrown into turmoil by drifter strikes, local administrations have been forced to reorganize using emergency procedures put in place by President Celis Agard's crisis management team. Today's attacks have silenced many who question President Agard's decision to postpone the Federation's regularly scheduled elections. Only the Federalist Liberal Party has remained vocal in their criticism, accusing the president of using the atmosphere of fear to disrupt the lawful democratic process. Her own party, the Progressive Unionists, have dismissed these claims, praising Agard for putting the defense of the Federation first. The president herself spoke at a press conference in Luminaire today, praising the, quote, dedication and bravery of those who have taken up the fight against the drifters. When questioned, she was reluctant to give a definitive answer to the rescheduling of the election, stating that this crisis has only just begun. Caldari State stands as one in face of threat. Speaking aboard a Chimera-class carrier, Chairman Akimaka Saraki has commended the Caldari Navy for its speedy deployment to all systems of conflict. He added that, quote, the very best of the state cannot be distracted from their sworn duty, end quote. Some political pundits took comments as a disparaging reference to those who criticized the CEP for relying on Gallente intel. Saraki issued a second statement dismissing the analysis as disruptive and unfounded. This statement began, quote, we are one Caldari. Never is this truer than when we find ourselves tested by unprecedented times. As long as we stand as one, none may stand against us. Holders invest at Empress's behest. Across the Amarr Empire, newly deployed joint holder assets have moved to meet drifter forces. Organized in secret, these newly formed armadas pool the resources of local nobility to enable timely countermeasures. Able to respond more rapidly than Imperial forces, they are part of a strategy that puts responsivity first. Empress Cadis I has been credited with this logistical innovation. In an empire-wide broadcast, she commended all Amarrian citizens for their fortitude in the face of darkness. She called on all faithful to band together against the demonic aberrations that plague our skies. In years past, these same monstrosities breached our borders and murdered our holy Empress Jamil I. They caught us by surprise, but this time we are ready to show them the truth of our Lord's will. Republic scrambles to respond. The Republic fleet has scrambled to defend clan holdings under attack. Thucker Chief Enar Abdul has criticized Samatar Malatu Shakur and the Tribal Council for failing to heed the tribal's warning of a rising drifter threat. Quote, we who wander are tired of being overlooked, he told reporters. It brings me great sorrow that innocent Matari must now pay a high price for the Republic's foolishness. The Samatar has deflected these criticisms, saying that, quote, now is the time for unity. Despite what Abel might think, the Republic fleet is always ready to defend our people. We should be focused on how to support them, not casting aspersions. Deathless Circle blamed by SOCT. As the nations of New Eden respond to drifter threat, their representatives are being hosted at an emergency Concord summit in Ulai. As diplomats headed into session, the Society of Conscious Thought elder mentor Matashi Reich spoke to the press, laying the blame on the ongoing crisis at the feet of the Deathless Circle. Quote, these drifter attacks are the direct result of Deathless and its circle's reckless hubris. Their occupation of the Fulcrum and Warden structures have clearly awoken a threat that long lay dormant. Through their interference with technology beyond their understandings, they have unleashed a tragedy upon our cluster, end quote. Rumors have spread that the Deathless Circle are attempting to take advantage of the current situation by deploying research outposts within crisis systems, only to come under attack by the drifters themselves. While calls to aid have been registered, military forces are encouraging capsuleers to bring any research produced at Circle facilities to national intelligence agencies and not to aid the criminal organization. News in briefs. New rifts appear across New Eden. SSOCT detects new conflict zones in abyssal deep flows. Massive destruction in Molten Heath as capsuleers go head-to-head. Concord interface multi-open functionality wows crate enthusiasts. Voluva suspended in many Minmatar clans in response to drifter attacks. Mountain faction leads state military and civilian relief fundraising initiatives. Amarr Drifter War veterans account for record number of re-enlistment. Archaeologists confused by temporary emergences of Jovian relics in crisis systems. And that is it for your New Eden news on this January 30th, YC127. A little bit of analysis. Obviously, this is the ongoing drifter attacks that we've been warned about starting late last year, which is an escalation of what we've seen between the drifters and the Triglavians over the last year. Thanks to the Deathless's interactions with the Warden and the Fulcrum, they have attacked the Zarzak itself, and now it appears to be a global attack across the cluster. A lot of these responses are directly a result of the responses that they gave in the previous news article. So, you know, the Galente were the ones that put out their big announcement, so they seem to be the most ready with their plans. The Minmatar were more dismissive of the threat, and so they are kind of being criticized for not being prepared, whereas, for instance, the Caldari were prepared, but they got kind of accused of relying on Galente intelligence, but they claimed that they had their own intelligence. So this is just kind of each of the empires stating their position with what's going on. The only thing that's really interesting about this, and of course, you know, the SSCT are blaming the Deathless Circle for this. We know now that the Deathless himself is a former SOCT member, so one could argue that all of this is an SOCT crisis. I do find it interesting that they are calling this the Drifter crisis when I've been calling this whole thing between the Drifters and the Triglavians the precursor crisis for quite some time. In addition to this, we do have the abyssal deep flow rifts that have been spawning. Especially because of the deep flow rifts and the crates that they provide, they did add multi-open functionality to various reward crates for things like deep flow rifts or other events and things that give you a crate. Instead of having to open them one at a time, you can, you know, use multi-open. Mountain faction is the largest of the different factions. It's Calakiota and Sugavesta. They have a lot of real estate and food and infrastructure in what they're built, so it kind of makes sense that they would be the ones that lead these kinds of things. They're the most prepared and the most kind of on the spot to deal with attacks on infrastructure, whereas the Ocean faction is more related to the Hypernet and Jada and Expert Systems, and the Forest faction... Wait, no, I'm wrong. Forest faction, I think, is the one that's more GDF oriented, and then the Ocean faction is the one that's more about building new structures within the war zone and dealing with faction warfare and stuff, if I remember correctly. But that's it for today's analysis and New Eden news. Let me know, is this exciting to you? The Drifters have finally returned as we were afraid that they were going to. This definitely represents kind of the full-scale return of the Drifter plotline. Are you guys excited about this? Are you going to be helping out the Deathless? Are you going to be helping out the Empires? Obviously, there have been some people asking me whether or not we're going to be able to help out the Drifters. CCP has made it pretty clear that they want Drifters to be the big bad end guy for the whole game. So chances are we won't be able to necessarily help out the Drifters per se, but we can help out the Empires or the Deathless, depending on which one they are. And in fact, some of the sites even allow you to directly do that. How much these sites are going to influence the future, whether or not these are going to escalate further, they've already suggested that they are. But in order to know about them as soon as they do, make sure to subscribe to the channel, because here we talk about all things EVE Online, and I am here to put EVE into context for you, my fellow Empyreans, because a more informed player base makes a better game, and that's what we're all about. So until next time, I have been Ashtarothi, the voice of New Eden, and I'll see you in space.